Hello and welcome to the Minutes to Win It podcast. I'm Big Italy 42. He's Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. Talking about some guys increase, decrease in minutes, or just some guys that, maybe standing out that you might not realize. Starting at the top, Kobe Bryant, not going to play tonight. Did not play, old. Needs to rest his back and knees, as most old men do. And Jordan Clarkson, a guy who probably won't see a lot more minutes, but as far as volume, shots, obviously there's more shots to go around every time Kobe's not on the court. So Clarkson, a little bit more pricey on DraftKings than he is on FanDuel than he is on DraftKings. But he's been playing right around 30 minutes a game anyway. Expect him to be like 32-ish tonight. And, he's a guy that has some big-time upside when he gets big minutes.
Yeah, you're looking at that DK price. You kind of like him 5,200 there. If you're looking to go a bit cheaper, trying to build that Westbrook lineup on DK with him being 22,000. Oh, sorry, 12,000.
Seems
on,
like it.
DK. But Clarkson lower than TJ McConnell for price there. So, that's kind of a good comparison of where he's priced at.
Yeah, that seems about right. And then next up, talking about the Boston Celtics, Marcus Smart, as you mentioned, was in the starting lineup last time out. Played great, especially on, really in all areas. Defense against Russell Westbrook, held him to 5 of 20 shooting. Obviously he wasn't there for every shot, but overall he shot 5 for 20. Smart was 9 for 14, 26 real points. He's a guy that if he's getting 30-plus minutes, he has big-time upside. And it's a matchup against Houston that, it's not a bad one because Houston's just been a mess on defense. You see these vines all the time, guys just standing around. Marcus Smart's aggressive. He's a good player. And Avery Bradley back to the bench. So you got to imagine those minutes are swinging more towards Marcus Smart as Brad Stevens figures out. He's got a ton of depth. He knows what he's doing. He's figuring out, get your best players on the floor, and it seems like Marcus Smart has proven he's one of the best on the team.
Yeah, we're always kind of looking for sure minutes from the Celtics side, and it's kind of evening out there in the backcourt. I think Thomas, I love the lineup last night of Thomas playing shooting guard and Smart there. I think that's kind of the right move going forward. I still think either of those guys are going to see 30-plus minutes. I'm not banking on Bradley to see anything more than 25 tonight. So looking at the guard spots there, you got to like Smart and Isaiah Thomas tonight in this matchup.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of both those guys. Marcus Thornton next up, guy who was soaking up a ton of minutes, and he was productive too, scoring a lot of points. He was doing well, but obviously with Dwight Howard back in the mix, you see Thornton not only 18 minutes per game the last 2 games, but shooting a combined 3 for 17. So everything going against him right now, he is easily untouchable on DraftKings for me at 5,700. Probably not a guy I'll go anywhere near at FanDuel, even under 5K there. So just keep that in mind. He's a guy that's just not going to see minutes unless Trevor Ariza said questionable, but he says he's going to play closer to probable from the things I'm seeing. So I'm not overreacting to that, and there's going to be 0 Marcus Thornton in my lineups tonight.
Yeah, both sides, especially DK, make it easy for us to not even, conclude for him tonight. Just because 5,700, that's steep for a guy who's not a lock for minutes. I'm definitely staying away.
Yeah, absolutely. And then guy who's been working his way back from an injury here, Wesley Matthews, sat out last game. He's going to play here. Got a nice cheap price tag on DraftKings, but certainly doesn't come without risk. You look at some of his recent games, 15 minutes against New Orleans, 0 for 5 from the field. Then 33 minutes against the Clippers, scores 40 fantasy points, then turns around, again, a better matchup against the Lakers, 16 fantasy points in 30 minutes. So very inconsistent, but as we know, the guy's a good defender. He has upside. He's a good shooter when he's healthy. Doesn't seem like he is completely healthy, but he's a guy that I don't mind mixing in a couple tournaments at that $4,600 price tag tonight.
Yeah, especially against Philly. You're kind of looking at consistency for minutes, and it looks like he's kind of getting back there, not to quite full health on the court-wise, but minutes-wise, his stamina looks like he's doing a lot better. Had some time off, so I think you can kind of bank on that 30-minute range tonight as long as things stay close, which is probably the case here with Dallas and Philly.
Yeah, absolutely. It's neither team having a whole lot of confidence in blowing anyone out right now. And even when Dallas almost did blow Houston out, they still let him get back in that game. But Kawhi Leonard, another one, sat out last game. Should be good to go for this one here. He's a guy that, has one of the better floors in all of basketball. You look at his game logs, he hasn't had less than 33 DraftKings points in any game. Upside is there. It's just whether or not you need it to be there. When they ask him to score, shoot first, that's what he does. But there's other weapons. Obviously, Aldridge has plenty of usage as well. So I think it's a great cash game play. probably a guy that I'll be more so in cash games than tournaments because I just don't know that he needs to have a big offensive game for the Spurs to win tonight.
Yeah, I mean, probably not. I mean, he had a decent game against Portland last time out. Didn't necessarily have to do a whole lot, but still a solid 27-3 line there. So you know that's what he's going to give you each game. The guy logs steals, blocks. I mean, he's a great defender, so he gets you points that way as well. So I'm with you there. Great cash game play. And, minutes-wise, he's going to be around 30, 35.
Yeah, and it's the biggest spread of the night, 12 points, too. So if the Spurs do what they're supposed to do, maybe he doesn't see much run in the fourth quarter anyway. Another guy that you and I were talking about earlier, seeing big minutes, and we've been seeing him get a lot of praise from the coaching staff there. Jeff Green, over his last two games, he bumped up from 17 minutes to 30 and 35, 27.25 and 30 DraftKings points in those two games. He's 3,500 on DraftKings, 38 on FanDuel, and on a night where it's really slim pickings past the top 4 or 5 guys really at small forward, I'm going to have a ton of Jeff Green, and seems like coaching staff's got confidence in him. And with Kevin Durant out, now's the time to play a 3 against OKC.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I mean, for a night we probably need a deep punt. I mean, Jeff Green's an excellent spot to deep punt with because 3,800 there, whatever he's at on FanDuel. I mean, small forward. I mean, it's really Kawhi and George, and maybe if you want to mix in Jay Crowder as well, still a decent value play. But if you're trying to get that extra couple thousand, I think Green's going to be asked to score a ton of points tonight just because they're going to have to keep up with OKC.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not like it's merely just a punt play here either. I mean, he's been a good scorer throughout his career. So, I mean, we saw him earlier and saw that price, and it was kind of one of those, like, you found your gold. So let's take advantage of that. Next up, Terrence Jones jumped from 21 minutes all of a sudden up to 42 in the last game. As we know, Boston front court, it's a great team defense, not great individual defensive players there down low. And Terrence Jones, I mean, this is a guy that can do it all. 7 blocks in his last 2 games, 13 rebounds, 23 points in each game. He's got big-time upside, and he's 5,900 on FanDuel, 6,000 on DraftKings. You're not expecting him to play 42 minutes, obviously, in this one, especially with Dwight Howard playing. But, mid-30s, 33 to 35 minutes, and I imagine he's going to be one of the more popular plays on the board tonight.
Yeah, I think he has to be just because power forward is kind of limited as well. We're looking at guys like Aldridge, whose ceiling is pretty limited when Kawhi's in the lineup. I think just because it's so spread out, you don't really like the upside there. Gasol's kind of the same way. There's a lot going around there, so I think we're kind of looking for those cheaper roles, and Terrence Jones just fits in that spot perfectly tonight.
Yeah, man. If we're talking about another cheap power forward there, Dwight Powell, sub 5K on both sides still. Not a guy that's seen a lot of minutes, but, I mean, he's been incredible with the minutes he's gotten. I mean, last 2 games, 22 and 26 minutes. Only taken a total of 14 shots in those 2 games, but 31.5 and 32.25 fantasy points. Facing off against Philly tonight, as we know, not a great defensive team. So this is a guy that has big-time upside because, I mean, when he's on the court, I mean, he's a hustle player. He's the type of guy you love to have on your team or on your fantasy team because you don't need him to play 30 to 35 minutes to pay off that tag.
Yeah, I mean, he's averaging 11 and 8 there in just 21 minutes this season. He goes and gets it. You got to like the matchup here against Philly. If he can get some run of 25 minutes, I mean, he's probably going to be one of the better value plays on the night when things wrap up.
Yeah, I have no problem with pairing him with Terrence Jones there at the 4 today. Next up, one of my favorite players and a guy who found this crazy stat on over his last 2 games, Joakim Noah, $4,700 on both sites, has made a grand total of 2 field goals in his last 2 games, and he has over 68 total fantasy points in 48 minutes on 2 made shots. 2 total made free throws throughout time, too, so it's not a situation of getting it done from the line. I mean, this guy, you love him because he can do everything while not scoring. If he just so happens to score also, which he certainly could against Indiana, who's been terrible down low, bad rebounding team. Noah's finally getting his minutes bumped up a little bit, 26, 25, 23 last couple games. And you can't argue with the production. I mean, we're talking on a point or on a per minute basis. He's been one of the better punt plays at any position last couple games.
Yeah, I mean, 29 rebounds in the last 2 games there. 13 assists. And like you just said, I mean, he's just got 6 points in the last 2 games, but he's producing on crazy levels for fantasy production. One of my favorite NBA players. I love him. Never thought I would see his price this low. So I think, on tonight where there's only really maybe 2 to 3 viable options at center if you want to take it down to a deeper level. I mean, Noah, is probably the guy to look out for.
Yeah, absolutely. And then another guy who's somewhat of a value here, Mason Plumlee against the Spurs. Spurs have struggled with big men this season, including Mason Plumlee. He's not a guy that takes a lot of shots. You don't really rely on his scoring. You worry about his peripherals and his rebounding. 30 minutes against the Spurs last time out. 9 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, a block, 2 steals. Kind of did it all. And he's been consistent. I mean, not a guy that you're expecting is going to crush value here, but in a guy that has seen 30 minutes in 3 of his last 4 games, you got to imagine that Plumlee makes for one of the better cash game plays if you're going cheap at center. I think he's okay in tournaments too, but I just don't think he has, that 40 fantasy point upside that you really want for a guy in your GPPs.
Yeah, I'm with you there, but we do got some breaking news.
Oh, no.
George Hill out tonight.
Oh, man.
Respiratory illness there, so he is out for sure. Digging through, Indy's pretty limited in the backcourt. George Hill is logging monster minutes.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. Stuckey's questionable too, last I saw, so you imagine if he's healthy, maybe he slots in the starting lineup, takes over a bigger role. Maybe we see some Monte Ellis and Point Monte tonight.
That could be the way to go. It's probably going to be a weird night for Indy. To be honest, they don't have anyone at point guard behind them.
Yeah, and the Bulls have not been a good defensive team like they have been in years past, so it's not like a situation where you worry too much about it. Obviously, Derrick Rose, not much of a defender at this stage in his career, but could be some more for Paul George. And you and I were kind of trying to figure out earlier who Jimmy Butler is going to see. Ellis, big games in 3 of his last 4. Could be him. I don't know that it's necessary for them to put him on Paul George because then you got Tony Snell and company trying to work on Monte Ellis. But now with this, maybe we do see Ellis and Stuckey take over most of the point guard duties, and then that's not really going to – that maybe will leave Butler for Paul George. But either way, Paul George I like tonight quite a bit either way.
Yeah, especially kind of now, he should have the ball in his hands a lot more. If Stuckey doesn't play, it's probably going to be Ellis at the point. You got to see CJ Miles probably getting in there as well, get a little bit more minutes. But I think this is one that's just going to be crazy to watch. I'm not really too sure how they're going to deal with it without a backup point guard.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Maybe we see point Paul George. I'm joking. I don't think we really will. But either way, definitely a lot more volume for George because he's obviously the most reliable scorer they have. Ellis finally starting to get it going after a really bad start to the season. So those 2 guys right there might be locked into 40-plus minutes and just tons of shots. So
yeah,
gotta like those guys.
Looks like Joe Young, rookie point guard, has only played 4 minutes in the first 5 games for the Pacers so far this season. So, really, it's not going to be – he'll get some more minutes, but obviously not on our radar. But just some news there.
He's also shooting guard eligible on DraftKings. So
yeah.
If we hear maybe, they come out and say he's going to see 20 minutes, might be a guy you can slot in there at a weak shooting guard position for cheap.
Yeah, especially if you're trying to get Westbrook and someone else.
Yeah, but I certainly won't be doing too crazy on him, though, until we hear something for sure. Last guy up we want to talk about for minutes, Marc Gasol has been seeing huge minutes recently, obviously with some injuries to Brandon Wright. And relative to his minutes, the point per minute numbers are not phenomenal, but he's been very consistent. So if you're paying for a great cash game center, he sees the easy play tonight. It's only $7,000 on DraftKings, which is kind of surprising to me for a guy who's just been so consistent. And really the thing that has been a disappointment on his end has been rebounding. He's got 1 game with 10 or more rebounds so far this year, but an OKC team that continues to see Russell Westbrook out rebound, a lot of the big men. This has not been a good front court. Ibaka's been good as far as blocks and scoring goes. Rebounding numbers have been really down. So, Marc Gasol kind of locked into big minutes. They're going to rely on him to score, like we were mentioning with Jeff Green earlier. There's not a whole lot of scoring options to, keep this one close. But you got to like Marc Gasol. He's probably your safest play at center. It's probably not even that close.
Yeah, I think so too. Looking at the last few games, he's been heavily used in the offense, which is nice to see because that wasn't the case earlier in the year. He's been sub 7,000 the last few days here. He was 67 the other night when I used him. Just 7K. Not a lot of options. You still have Okafor and Howard. Everything's pretty close in DK there, so you got some tough decisions to make. But, yeah, Gasol, really safe call tonight.
Yeah, should see. We're guessing 37, 38 minutes, maybe even more in this matchup here. So, Yeah. Outside of that, some other guys we're looking at. Eric Bledsoe has been tremendous recently. 30 for 44 in his last 3 games shooting. He's obviously not going to continue to shoot 60%, but he's going to continue to put up great numbers in every other category as well. So he's a guy that, I mean, you kind of just have to play. Westbrook, tougher to fit on DraftKings, as we kind of alluded to a little bit. 12-2 compared to 11-4 on FanDuel. I'm not going to be the person that tells you not to play Russell Westbrook, but I'm also not going to be the one that says you're guaranteed to lose tonight if you don't. So going to be a tough decision, more so on DK. Not that hard to fit on FanDuel, but on DK, you got to get creative. So that Indiana situation with George Hill might open up just enough value that you feel good about the lineup without him. But it's going to be tough to get him in there with multiple other mid-range to upper-range guys tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably going to be looking at a team like Westbrook, Dwight Powell, Green. I mean, and hopefully maybe some upper level plays, but it's going to be tough on DK.
Yeah, so get to work on getting creative on that early today because especially, I mean, luckily we're getting this news early. This is very, very early afternoon, like lunchtime. So hopefully we get at least a good grasp of who's going to be where tonight before we get close to lock. So, all right, that'll wrap things up for us here today. Find us on Twitter at DF Cafe. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Lots of other great content at dailyfantasycafe.com.